Most men seek power through alliances, yet it is alliances that destroy them. In this world, the hand you shake today will be the hand that strangles you tomorrow. The greatest leaders understand this truth. To rule others, you must first rule in silence, alone. Power does not bloom in crowded halls or noisy councils. It is cultivated in shadows. In the mind of the one who dares to withdraw, the weak crave company because solitude forces them to face the truth of their insignificance. The strong, however, embrace isolation, for it sharpens the intellect, hardens the will, and reveals the true nature of man. Isolation is not retreat, it is refinement. It is where leaders strip away illusion, where they learn not to need approval, not to seek alliance, not to depend on the trembling hands of others. In solitude, one ceases to be a servant of perception and becomes its master. Power never reveals itself in proximity. It grows in the silence between appearances. In the calculated distance between you and the world that wants to consume your attention. Most people confuse presence with influence. They think that by being everywhere, by speaking endlessly, by showing their face, they will be remembered. Yet the opposite is true. The more visible you are, the cheaper your value becomes. Familiarity is the enemy of fear, and without fear, no authority survives. Ask yourself, when does the lion command more respect? When he prowls the savannah, or when he sleeps in the open cage for all to see? To withdraw is to reclaim power from perception. You cease to be a participant in others' games and begin to shape their expectations instead. This is the art of controlled absence, a force so subtle, so precise, that it bends others without them realizing they've been moved. Consider the rulers who understood this. Caesar withdrew from the Senate, letting chaos expose the weakness of others. He didn't rush to speak. He allowed silence to speak for him. Napoleon often isolated himself before battle, not for rest, but for control. For silence gives clarity, and clarity gives command. The same pattern echoes through history. Those who ruled effectively were those who learned when to disappear. Why? Because visibility breeds vulnerability. The moment the crowd sees too much of you, they begin to measure you. They begin to question, to doubt, to compare, and the comparison is fatal. You must learn to weaponize distance, to make people miss your presence. When you step back, they fill the void with imagination, and imagination is always more powerful than truth. Psychology calls this the scarcity principle. What is rare is valuable. What is always available loses meaning. In relationships, politics, business, the rule is universal. The more you offer yourself, the less you are desired. The less you reveal, the more they chase what they cannot define. But withdrawal is not absence without strategy. It is the deliberate crafting of tension, a calculated silence that forces others to orbit around your uncertainty. You must become unpredictable, appearing at moments of impact, then retreating before they can grasp your pattern. Every king, every manipulator, every true leader understands this rhythm. Appear, disappear, give, then withhold, speak, then vanish. Each movement designed to make others adjust to your pulse. There's a reason why prophets, generals, and philosophers all sought solitude before revealing their visions. They knew that separation sharpens perception, that the man who stands apart is the man who sees the whole. In modern life, withdrawal remains misunderstood. People call it antisocial, detached, arrogant. They mistake independence for isolation. But here lies the Machiavellian truth. It is not loneliness you seek, it is leverage. When you remove yourself from constant noise, you stop reacting and start orchestrating. You begin to study people not as companions, but as instruments. You see who depends on your approval, who craves your attention, who panics in your silence. That panic is power. Let them wonder where you are. Let them fill the silence with fear, with speculation, with need. The moment they realize you do not need them, they begin to need you. Understand this. Power is never seized in conversation. It is seized in absence. Silence creates the illusion of depth. Mystery magnifies respect. When people cannot read you, they must imagine you as greater than you are. And imagination always outgrows reality. Even in the digital age, perhaps especially now, Withdrawal is rebellion. Everyone screams for attention, few dare to withhold it. Those who do appear godlike. In a world addicted to display, privacy becomes dominance. But withdrawal is dangerous if misused. To vanish without intention is to be forgotten. To disappear without timing is to be dismissed. The art lies in balance, in controlling the rhythm between presence and absence so that both work to your advantage. You are not running from the world. You are conditioning it to respond to your silence. Because every time you step away, you remind the world that it cannot access you at will. That you are not a servant of attention, but the master of it. When you withhold yourself, people do not forget you. They obsess over you. They interpret every move, every silence, every delay as strategy. You become a mystery they must solve. And mystery is the highest currency of power. So withdraw, not in weakness, but in design. Not to escape, but to construct your influence from the shadows. Because those who are always seen are never feared, and those who understand the power of distance will soon command those who do not. Now, ask yourself, when you vanish next time, will they breathe easier? Or will the silence you leave behind speak louder than your voice ever could? Listen closely, the world is a cacophony. Opinions, advice, judgments, pleas, and distractions surround you like an endless storm. Most men drown in it, believing that engagement is action, that responding is strength. But the truth is harsher. Noise is the enemy of clarity, and clarity is the foundation of power. Ask yourself, when the soldier faces the battlefield, does he pause to debate every whisper of the crowd? Does he bend to the complaints of allies or the doubts of subordinates? No. He listens to one voice, the command of strategy, the instinct honed in solitude, the quiet calculation that turns chaos into victory. History favors those who have learned to eliminate noise. Consider Augustus Caesar, the founder of Rome's empire. Surrounded by senators, advisors, and sycophants, he understood that every voice not essential to his purpose diluted his authority. He distanced himself from opinion, allowing only what served his strategy to reach his ears. What did he gain? Control over the Senate, over the army, over Rome itself. His power did not bloom from friendship, it bloomed from selective hearing. Noise is seductive. It feeds the ego. It convinces you that every demand requires a response, that every criticism must be answered, that every complaint is a threat. But consider the subtle truth: most of the voices you hear are neither loyal nor intelligent. They are echoes of weakness, projections of fear, instruments of distraction. And if you allow them to dictate your action, they will destroy you. Do you hear it? The constant chatter inside your mind, amplified by the chatter outside. That is what must be silenced. To rule effectively, you must cultivate a sanctuary for thought, a space untouched by frivolous influence. Isolation is not enough. It is selective attention that grants true command. Decide which voices are worthy, and dismiss the rest as irrelevant. Psychology teaches that human attention is finite. What you permit into your mind shapes your decisions, and ultimately, your power. The man who absorbs every complaint, every rumor, every plea becomes enslaved by them. The man who filters, who curates, who eliminates the meaningless, becomes sovereign in thought. And sovereignty in thought precedes sovereignty in action. Look to Machiavelli's Florence, or to Richelieu's France. The statesmen who thrived understood that noise is not just distraction, it is a weapon wielded by others to manipulate your choices. Courtiers, allies, even supposed friends, speak to bend you to their will. They layer their ambitions atop yours, hoping that your mind becomes a battlefield of others' desires. Silence is your defense. Selective attention is your sword. The elimination of noise is also the elimination of expectation. When men do not know what compels your action, they cannot manipulate it. When they cannot reach your mind, they must guess. And guesses are rarely in their favor. By listening only to the signals that matter, you gain the advantage of surprise, the advantage of control, the advantage of perspective. Consider Elon Musk, a modern practitioner of this principle. Amid social media chaos, public outrage, and ceaseless commentary, He has mastered the ability to focus only on the signals relevant to innovation and strategy. The rest, ignored, dismissed, rendered irrelevant. Those who react to every voice drown. Those who listen selectively steer the course of empires, industrial, technological, and financial. Noise clouds judgment. Noise weakens resolve. Noise breeds indecision. To eliminate it is to reclaim your mind and forge it into a weapon. But elimination is not avoidance. It is intention. You do not ignore the world because you are afraid of it. You ignore the world because you are stronger than it. You ignore the claimer because in silence, you discover the truths that the restless cannot see. Ask yourself how much of what you hear is shaping you, and how much of it is shaping them through you. Every irrelevant voice that seeps in is a leak in your authority, a crack in your strategy, a blade aimed at your back. To protect yourself, you must become ruthless in filtration. You must decide who is worthy of entering your mind, and who is a parasite to be cast aside. In this quiet, in this space cleansed of distraction, insight sharpens. The mind that survives the storm of noise becomes a predator. It sees weakness others cannot. It anticipates moves others cannot. It shapes outcomes others cannot even imagine. So, rid yourself of the trivial. Reject the chorus of meaningless voices. Focus only on what advances your dominion, your strategy, your vision. Every whisper ignored is power gained. Every distraction denied is influence reclaimed. And as you sit in this silence, consider this: the world will mistake your quiet for weakness, your patience for passivity, your restraint for indecision. Let them. They are blind. They cannot perceive the storm that brews behind the calm, the storm that will strike when you command it, when you have mastered the elimination of noise. The question becomes, how will you wield the clarity you have seized? Power is not demonstrated by presence alone. True influence, the kind that bends men, cities, and nations, thrives in absence. Ask yourself, which commands more respect? The general always on the battlefield, shouting orders, visible to every soldier, or the general whose shadow looms over every camp, whose arrival is rare, yet decisive, whose absence makes every move he does feel monumental? History teaches this lesson with brutal clarity. Consider Alexander the Great. He did not constantly surround himself with the court's flattery. He withdrew, sometimes for days, leaving subordinates and allies to scramble, to misstep, to reveal their weaknesses. When he returned, he struck, decisively. His absence was a tool. It forced others to adjust to his rhythm, to anticipate his will, to elevate his presence simply because it was scarce. The psychology of absence is not mystery alone. It is the creation of need. Humans are creatures of projection. They fear what they cannot see and crave what they cannot touch. When you remove yourself from their immediate grasp, you create a vacuum. And every vacuum attracts obsession, speculation, fear, emotions you can direct like currents in a river. Look at Cardinal Richelieu, the master of 17th century intrigue. He rarely appeared in public without strategy. The court buzzed in anticipation, wondering when he would emerge, what influence he would assert, which allies he would favor. His absence created anxiety, dependency, and reverence all at once. Those who feared him could not ignore him, and those who opposed him often acted prematurely, out of uncertainty. Mistakes he would exploit mercilessly. Ask yourself how many of your rivals act because of what you say, and how many act because of what you don't say. The latter is infinitely more powerful. The man who speaks too often allows others to define him. The man who remains strategically absent forces others to define him. And those definitions almost always exaggerate, magnify, and inflate the power he already holds. Even in personal dynamics, the principle endures. Consider the office environment, the team, the circle of influence. The one who is constantly present, constantly agreeing, constantly visible, becomes predictable. They are measured, examined, and easily manipulated. The one who withdraws occasionally, who remains unobserved, who responds selectively, becomes the pivot around which others revolve. Presence is currency, absence is leverage. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect. What is rare is desired. What is constantly available is undervalued. Every absence you create is a subtle hand that moves perception in your favor. Every moment you refrain from immediate reaction, every silence you maintain, builds a reputation far beyond words or actions. The mind left to fill gaps will inflate your power, your cunning, your significance. But dominance through absence is a discipline, not a whim. Miscalculate, and you vanish into irrelevance. Withdraw without purpose, and the world forgets your name. The art lies in precision. Retreat long enough to provoke thought, uncertainty, and anticipation, not long enough to be forgotten. Appear with impact. Retreat to cultivate tension. Every step must be deliberate. Look at modern examples of influence: CEOs, strategists, public figures. Those who dominate are not those who appear in every meeting, every feed, every headline. They are those who craft their appearances, who orchestrate their silences, who allow the world to believe that every move is a calculated strike. Elon Musk does this in the modern era. Steve Jobs did this before him. Their absence magnified their presence. Their silence controlled perception. Do you understand this? To control others, you must first control the space around your absence. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them adjust their actions to your rhythm. Anticipation is far more powerful than instruction. Fear of what might come is more binding than the reality that arrives. The cruel elegance of absence is that it forces others to obey you without a word. They project your power, they inflate your influence, and they bend to your will, all before you act. This is the highest form of control, when your shadow rules while your body remains unseen. So consider, are you always present because you must be, or are you present because absence is a weapon you have yet to wield? Every retreat is an opportunity, every silence is a strategy, and every anticipation you cultivate becomes a chain around the minds of others, invisible but unbreakable. And when you master the art of absence, ask yourself, who truly moves first, you, or those who believe they move without you? Power is fragile when it leans on others. Dependency is the silent poison that corrodes authority, the invisible chain that binds your will to the whims of the weak, the ambitious, and the foolish. Ask yourself, are you the master, or are you a prisoner of those who orbit around you? Consider the history of Rome. Julius Caesar, though a general of unmatched brilliance, was careful to cultivate loyalty that was earned, not demanded, and never assumed. He knew that if he allowed his victories to depend on the stability of others' allegiances, he would be at the mercy of betrayal. Pompey and Crassus, his so-called allies, eventually turned against him because Caesar's power was untempered by control over dependency. And the world of men rewards nothing more cruelly than misjudged trust. Dependency is seductive because it disguises itself as comfort. The advisor who flatters, the ally who promises assistance, the confidant who pledges loyalty, they all offer ease, security, companionship. But look closer. Every promise is a lever to bend you. Every hand extended in aid is a weight placed upon your sovereignty. The more you rely, the more you are tethered, and the more easily you can be manipulated. Ask yourself, how often do you compromise your strategy for the comfort of the familiar? How often do you act against your own judgment because others claim to hold your interests? These are not mistakes, they are chains. To lead, you must first learn to cut them. Consider Machiavelli's Florence, where alliances shifted like sand under wind. The prince who relied too heavily on others, even those sworn to him, found his power fleeting. Only those who could act alone, who could execute plans without the crutch of approval or the comfort of counsel, endured. Isolation in this sense is not loneliness. It is liberation. It is the cleansing of dependency. Modern psychology explains why this is so vital. Humans are naturally influenced by the expectations of those around them. Social dependence, even subtle, warps perception, distorts judgment, and forces compromise. When you act to satisfy the anticipation of others, you surrender the one element that cannot be returned: your agency. And agency is the essence of control. Look to the great conquerors. Genghis Khan, for example, did not rule through attachment. He demanded loyalty but required independence in action. His generals operated with discretion, Yet the vision remained his alone. Dependency was minimized. For the moment a subordinate became indispensable, he became a rival, a potential source of ruin. The truly powerful tolerate no such imbalance. Even in business and politics today, the principle is unchanged. Leaders who over-rely on teams, committees, or advisors are quick to falter. Those who cultivate independence, who operate decisively, whose vision is theirs alone, strike with clarity and precision. The fewer you must rely upon, the fewer can betray, mislead, or dilute your intent. The cleansing of dependency is not a rejection of all support. It is the discipline of discernment. Every connection, every alliance, every act of assistance must be measured against one question: does this serve my power, or does it bind it? If it binds, it must be tempered, minimized, or removed entirely. To do otherwise is to give others the map to your chains. Look inward. Are you free in thought? Or does the presence of others dictate your decisions? Are your victories truly yours, or are they borrowed from the labor and loyalty of the vulnerable? True independence requires sacrifice. It requires leaving comfort behind. It demands that you trust only in your own judgment and your own execution. Yet this cleansing is also preparation. By removing dependency, you create a self-sufficient force capable of operating under any condition, unseen or opposed. You become a singular mind unshaken by the faltering of allies, undistracted by flattery, unmoved by demand. In solitude, your strategy sharpens. In autonomy, your will hardens. And in that hardened will, domination becomes inevitable. Consider this carefully. Every tie you cannot sever is a vulnerability. Every reliance you tolerate is a threat. Every concession you make for the comfort of others diminishes your power. The world is indifferent. It rewards only those capable of standing alone. So, strip away dependency. Purge the need for approval. Free yourself from the illusion that others are essential to your success. Because when you act without reliance, when your victories are born from your own will alone, you become untouchable. And when the moment comes that all who surround you tremble, wondering if your favor is a gift or a weapon, you will realize that freedom from dependency is not merely strength. It is domination itself. And as you master this cleansing, ask yourself, who is truly powerful, the man surrounded by allies, or the one whose will bends all others because he needs none? True mastery begins when you strip away the illusions of dependence, noise, and distraction, leaving yourself alone with your own thoughts. But solitude alone is insufficient. The mind that sits idle in isolation does not become powerful, it only grows restless. True power is forged when you rebuild yourself. When you reconstruct your mind as a singular instrument of control, precision, and strategy. Ask yourself, what do you become when every external influence is removed? Most men panic. They grasp at familiar voices, at the echoes of others' guidance, at the safety of opinion. But the truly strategic see an opportunity, a blank canvas upon which to craft a vision unmatched by the input of the weak, timid, or the uninformed. Solitude is the forge. Rebuilding is the weapon. Consider Julius Caesar once more. Before crossing the Rubicon, he did not consult countless advisors. He walked alone through the provinces, observing, reflecting, calculating. Every alliance he formed afterward, every maneuver in the Senate, every military decision flowed from a mind sharpened in singular focus. By rebuilding himself in solitude, he became a force the world could not predict, a singularity of intellect and ambition. Rebuilding as the singular mind is more than thinking independently. It is the elimination of mental clutter, the dismissal of inherited dogma, the rejection of inherited fears. It is a psychological metamorphosis. Every belief must be tested. Every assumption must face scrutiny. Every action must be weighed against the sole criterion: does this serve my vision, or does it serve the expectations of others? Look to history again. Alexander the Great did not rely solely on inherited wisdom or the counsel of generals. He studied the world as it existed. He imagined the world as it could be. And he acted with a mind that had been refined by solitude, sharpened by reflection, and disciplined by ambition. The singular mind is not distracted by consensus, it is undeterred by dissent. It sees patterns invisible to the crowd and exploits weaknesses unnoticed by the many. Psychology explains why this works. Humans are wired to seek social validation, to anchor their decisions in the judgments of peers. To break free from this is to release a mind unchained, a mind capable of predicting, manipulating, and controlling environments precisely because it is not tethered to expectation. When you reconstruct yourself, you create a mental framework that is your own. And a mind built in this way is inherently superior to those shaped by committee, by convention, or by compromise. But this reconstruction is deliberate. You do not simply sit in isolation and hope insight arrives. You cultivate it. You question every impulse. You simulate scenarios, anticipate opposition, and rehearse contingencies in the theater of your mind. Every failure becomes a lesson, every observation a tool, every insight a weapon. Slowly, methodically, the singular mind emerges. Disciplined, unflinching, unstoppable. Even in modern strategy, this principle endures. Consider generals, CEOs, innovators who dominate without appearing dominant. They spend time in thought that is unshared, plans that are unconsulted, strategies that exist solely in their singular minds until unleashed with precision. Their power is invisible yet absolute. The world perceives only the effect, never the mechanism. Ask yourself, do you act as a composite of expectations, or as a singular force that bends the world to its design? Most people borrow their thoughts, their courage, and their vision from others. You must learn to rely on none but your own intellect, your own calculation, your own judgment. That is the secret to dominance. Rebuilding as the singular mind also requires courage. The world will misinterpret your solitude as weakness. They will whisper about your eccentricity, your arrogance, your detachment. Let them. Their misunderstanding is inconsequential. What matters is the architecture of your mind, the clarity of your vision, the inevitability of your strategy. You are constructing a weapon they cannot see, a force they cannot anticipate, a power they cannot touch. And here lies the ultimate truth: the singular mind is not only independent, it is anticipatory. It foresees resistance, exploits gaps, and shapes events before others comprehend them. The world acts as though it leads, while in reality, it moves according to the direction you have silently imposed. So, ask yourself, can you step into isolation, confront the emptiness, and emerge rebuilt as something singular, something complete, something unassailable? Or will you allow the noise, the dependency, and the distractions to dictate the boundaries of your mind, leaving you ordinary, predictable, and powerless? Because the moment you reconstruct yourself into a singular mind, you do not merely influence the world, you control it. Power is not claimed in the light of day. It is cultivated in shadow. The world obeys not those who shout, but those who maneuver unseen. Every move you make in silence, every absence you command, every dependence you shed. These are the levers of true control. Ask yourself how many obey you because they must, and how many bend without realizing it. The answer defines your mastery. Control is subtle, it is invisible. It is the art of bending others to your will while leaving them convinced they act freely. Fear, respect, anticipation. These are tools, and the cleverest use them without exposure, without justification, without noise. Now, the question remains: will you act on this knowledge, or will you remain a spectator to the ambition of others? Comment your thoughts below. Reveal the strategies you are already using, or the moves you wish to master. Subscribe for more tactics that sharpen the mind and bend the world. Share this with those ready to see influence for what it truly is. The world is malleable. The question is, will you shape it or be shaped?